Greetings everyone, and welcome to Anime Night in the Dojo. Today's featured show, My Hero Academia, the final season.
Yeah, My Hero Academia, final season, episode 9. Welcome back to the dojo. I'm Ryu. That's Age. We're back for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And well, last week we had the finale in proper for the series, and now we're in full epilogue town. It was confirmed yesterday or the day before. I think it was yesterday as we record this that, or maybe it was today. I don't know. Just time is just all over the place. That regardless, the last whatever chapter was it, chapter 431 or 2, whatever the last thing that the author wrote, like halfway through this year, like that released in like July or whatever, that wrapped up like every other thing that they wanted to wrap up and answered a couple of the other questions, is going to be getting its own episode, but that's not coming out till May for obvious reasons, because the studio didn't know about it for like 6 months, so it probably took them, it's going to take them a while to wrap that up. So when that comes out, we'll probably do like a one-off on that. But so that means the 12th episode does exist, but it's not going to exist for about 6 months. So 5 months ish, somewhere around there, about half a year, either way. So this will be 11 episodes, so we got 3 episodes to go. 3 epilogue episodes is a pretty big deal, and we're getting a 4th later in a couple months, so that's a lot. So I expect a lot of things to be wrapped up, that kind of thing, stuff that we wanted to talk about. But again, last week it ended on a high note. We had all the team up stuff, all the stuff we talked about, and I think it was a solid ending. If that's how this series ended, it would have been completely fine. You know what I mean? Maybe did like a little like double length episode, or like a little like run over time, like how ReZero goes like 29 minutes, and do like a quick like wrap of how like people like celebrated for Deku and stuff like that. Shonen usually do stuff like that. But
yeah, it could.
That would have been fine. But obviously, since this is one of the biggest shonen of this era, people want more closure than the open-ended thing.
Yeah, like it could definitely have used a friggin' a wind down episode to kind of settle things after the big fight. But other than that, yeah, it was fine.
Yeah. So either way, looking forward to the epilogue stuff. Nothing to speculate on. We just have to watch it. You know what I mean? We're done speculating. All we can really do is talk about what we see here, and that's about it. Got to wrap up the Todoroki stuff, and then whatever else is, because that's what the name of this episode is. I think this is the 4th episode in this series with the Hellish Todoroki family as a moniker. It's the 3rd or 4th. It's at least the 3rd, if not the 4th or 5th. I just don't remember. So it's this has been like the major series of the Todoroki stuff, and even the ones that were like set like as the Todoroki the Hellish Todoroki family, there were several others that revolved around those. You know what I mean? There was at least 9, I want to say 9 or 10 episodes throughout the whole series that majorly revolved around the Todoroki family, bare minimum, if not an entire core. You know what I mean? So either way, I expect this to wrap up most of that, and then, be a thing. So this should be neat. And I'm excited to see what they did with this, and hopefully the people that wanted to get more out of this series got at least some of what they wanted, you know what I mean? Because as an author in writing and stuff like that, I can't fathom trying to please everybody. Just write your own story, do what you want, and if there are people upset, there's always going to be people upset, man. You can't worry about that. That's the best advice that I can give you, an author. If the majority of it is well received and stuff like that, don't worry about the noise, which is usually a minority. So anyway, we're going to push some buttons and get going here. So people on Patreon will see you on the other side of the edit for the timer reaction, and people on YouTube for the discussion and review. And if you're looking for either one of the opposite of those, they are in their respective places on YouTube or Patreon. So the links are where they need to be if you want to see the other video. So here goes something. Well, alrighty then, there you guys have it. First epilogue knocked out. It was fine for what it was. I just wanted to point this out immediately. Apparently, according to the internet, dubious value, obviously. Apparently, this is the guy, like the main guy from Vigilantes, which, for those of you who don't know, takes place before this, like several years before this main story of My Hero Academia. And apparently it happens in America. So that's the big difference.
I haven't really looked into it before. I remember hearing it was it takes place only like 6 or 7 months before the final battle. Like it's like kind of like in that in-between period where like we get like the time skip in the main series.
Yeah. From what, everything that I've read, which I've kind of kept away from it because I kind of want to watch it, but I'm always kind of weird with those like side series. Just it's kind of like how I felt about like Persona Phantom X was just like, I don't know if I want to get into something that isn't like P6, you know what I mean, and like getting the band together potentially, you know what I mean, and being like 5 adjacent, you know what I mean. So I don't know, but either way, everything that I saw about Vigilantes was that it's several years earlier and in America, because it's like young Midnight or younger Midnight. It's not like she was old. She was like 30, but that's something that I haven't really confirmed because I figured there'd be spoilers. But every like random synopsis blurb thing that I saw was that's what it was. But I know I saw a lot of people posting this exact shot right here. It's like, oh, it's the guy from Vigilantes, just not in his like now in his like more proper hero attire or whatever, and he like actually becomes a hero or something like that. But either way, this set up the rebuild, that kind of thing. They went through the hospital process, that kind of thing. Once again, All Might and Deku in the same room. Who would have guessed? You know what I mean?
According to people talking about it on Reddit, it's about 5 years before the start of the series.
Yeah.
Because apparently it takes place like pretty much immediately after All Might first gets injured. Yeah.
That's what I thought it was. Or at least that's what I read. Which made some semblance of sense because there were like screen captures of like Midnight and Mike and stuff like that they looked a little bit younger. But I mean, come on, like you don't age that much from like 20 to 50 sometimes, you know what I mean? So,
apparently like some of the more telling stuff is that like apparently like Mirko and Hawks briefly show up and they're way younger.
Yeah.
When they're both like very young, they're like only in like their 20s in present day.
Yeah, because Hawks is 22, so he'd be still like 16 5 years back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So either way, so there's that like little cameo thing that I wanted to talk about. But either way, hospital scene, solid for what it was. But again, the major thing, even though this was titled, the Hellish Todoroki family, and that being the thing, we had this situation where Bakugo getting the full Endeavor treatment, as Age mentioned at the end of the reaction, is he no longer has his rivalry. You know what I mean? And he's come not full circle, but his character arc has completed to the point where he wanted nothing to do with Deku because he was quirkless, and now because he's quirkless again, now he lost his rival and can no longer surpass him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like both Bakugo and Endeavor went along very similar character arcs, though they're opposite sides of the coin on the character arc, where like Endeavor goes full dark side on it, whereas Bakugo uses it to fix a lot of his darker traits, basically, and better himself out of it.
Right.
But they still end up largely going for the same thing, in that they freaking become like obsessed with being the rival of the One For All user. And in both cases, the One For All user ends up losing their quirks before they ever manage to surpass them.
Right. So either way, that was honestly the biggest part of this episode for me, even with the Todoroki stuff, because it just kind of like went through like, this graduation ceremony, that kind of stuff, the rebuild, that kind of thing. That's fine. Nothing wrong with it. You got to appreciate Mirio going full serious mode, because this didn't really call for comedy. You know what I mean? And he basically channeled his inner Night Eye, and that's what you needed to do. And everybody expects him to be the jokester and the prankster, but at the end of the day, we're talking about the guy who's probably going to become the next #1 hero. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's basically going to be either him or Bakugo if Bakugo manages to fully recover.
which, you know, he's in incredibly rough shape, obviously, but he
Yeah.
has the random tertiary trait of being able to walk anything off, apparently, in incredibly fast fashion. What's that? You almost died and had to be stitched together on your heart, and after that, you exploded yourself several kilometers away and blew up, all for one multiple times. Yeah, okay.
Literally parried Kurogiri with your teeth after parrying All for One with your teeth.
Yeah, so, apparently, if they ever do a death battle for Bakugo, his durability better be, like, through the roof. Because some of this stuff is, like, just, like, low-key insane.
He's over here one-upping Jabber.
Pretty much. I mean, it's just like you're supposed to you're supposed to like be off your feet, not doing anything, and then literally 5 minutes later, he's walking down the hallway like no big deal. So, yeah, it's just one of those things. But a lot of serious stuff, that kind of thing. Aoyama deciding to leave the school for his own personal reasons. He had to kind of figure something like that was coming because he has to go on his own like atonement tour and whatnot. But not before revealing Hagakure to the world again, and Mineta realizing that the hottest girl in class was never seen.
Yeah, once again, that's kind of the whole joke with freaking Hagakure, is that the hottest one in class was the one that no one could ever see.
Yep, so that's pretty damn hilarious. You got to appreciate the author doing something like that. So there you go. At the very least, she has the most unique character model. Beauty is subjective for the most part, but still, she has the most unique character model. And then we got her. You guys remember when you saw her for like 2 seconds in like season 1 or 2, whenever they mentioned the expulsions?
Yeah, it was season 1. It was like shortly after they got introduced to Aizawa. They like the whole thing of like him threatening to expel them, and then when he doesn't expel anyone, they bring up the whole thing of like usually he expels like half of the class, and then they go to their like special expulsion course.
Yeah. So that was something. Way to bring that call back from 8 years ago. So why not? She still exists. We all know Deku's now going to keep this hairstyle because Ochako likes it, so that's over. Enough said. I don't know why people are weirded out by this. He took a bunch of damage to the right side of his head, so you know what happens when you take damage to the right side of your head where there's hair? They shave it off!
Yeah, they have to shave it off in order to actually treat his injuries. Plus, then now he's got a big scar on the side of his head where hair's not really going to regrow, so his hair's never really going to go back fully to the same.
Yeah, so, I mean, do people not know how this works? I understand that this is an anime and stuff like that, but come on. You're going to have some reasonable amount of realism. You know what I mean? I would probably be calling them out, like, didn't he take a gigantic, injury to the head and he's over here, has all of his hair back a week later? You know what I mean? Or like a couple weeks later, whatever this is at this point. Are you kidding me? I'm gonna be like Archer counting bullets over here. What are you doing? You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I mean, we've seen stuff like this, like All Might's injury. Now he's all screw. The man who he has the world record for most screws in one body.
I mean, once again, he was in really bad shape even before he got beat to shit in the war here. Like, once again, he was already missing like half of his organs and borderline on freaking death's door.
Yeah, so you guys remember why he was coughing up blood? That wasn't just because he was small. It was because he when he first introduces himself to Deku, he shows that huge hole in his, abdomen right there, where, like they said, he lost a lot of internal organs. You know what I mean? So it's no different than like Ed and Owl's teacher from Full Metal Alchemist. What happens with her? You know what I mean? When you lose internal organs, you're on a clock, man. You know what I mean? Generally speaking, obviously with things like Recovery Girl and the stuff that they have had, but
with their technology, he's not like under risk of dying to the injuries, but he doesn't have full function of his body anymore.
Yeah. So either way, this whole sequence was fine, and as per the episode's title. We didn't get that till almost 17 minutes into the damn episode. But I mean, you can't really put you had to do what they did from a timeline perspective. You know what I mean? So that was totally fine, and everything that we got on the Todoroki family here was everything that needed to happen. We didn't need anything else. What else could have possibly happened? You know what I mean? Dabi is still clinging to life, and according to the attending physicians there, that he is literally on a clock, but I mean, come on. You know what I mean? There's a difference between losing some internal organs and literally burning yourself out inside and out. Beyond, like, insanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, he suffered even more freaking damage than Bakugo did. All things considered.
Yep. And let's not forget that his body was created, if you will, or was born with the trait of being able to resist cold. You know what happens when you're cold resistant? Your heat resistance is negative numbers. Generally speaking.
No, not necessarily, but yeah, that was like the whole thing when he was being raised, and why Endeavor kind of abandoned him in the first place was the whole thing of he was trying to create the perfect like fire cold hybrid, and freaking Dabi, while he had incredible firepower, he didn't have any sort of real fire resistance to resist his own fire.
Yep. Now I will say this, and this is something I was thinking about to myself, is like when Endeavor was telling him to give up hero work, it's like my first thought of that was, if he's super resistant to cold, send him to a cold climate with his flames, and he could do super specialized work with saving people from cold areas, because he could probably just walk in there like that and just be like, okay, who needs saving? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got buried in an avalanche? I got you, man. You know what I mean? You could have still been a very specialized hero, but just not like fighting bad guys, but being like a specialist like cold weather rescue hero. That has to be a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing for his abandonment, though, was really just the fact that once again Endeavor was at that point still in his fuck all might arc, where he didn't care about anything but trying to create someone who could surpass All Might, since he knew he never would.
Yeah. So I'm just saying from like the outsider perspective of, if the family wasn't super borked, my first thought would have been like, oh, well, dude, if you want to do, I'm not telling you go be a cop or whatever, but you could still just do hero work. There's more to hero work than just, taking down the bad guys. You know what I mean? Once again, and we'll talk about it more in the last episode, but something that needs to be brought up for this series. This isn't DC and Marvel. Not every super-powered character has a superpower. They are quirks. Some of them are as, like, mundane as that guy who could pull, like, little tiny razor blades out, or, like Deku's mom. Or the guy that just had, like, horns. You know what I mean? They are quirks. They are, like, genetic mutations that are kind of weird. Not necessarily a superpower. You know what I mean?
Once again, the first person was literally just someone who glowed.
Yeah, it was just the glowing baby. That's all they did was radiated light. I mean, I guess you could be a mild inconvenience if he could ramp up his light. Maybe he could, like, solar flare somebody like Krillin or Goku. You know what I mean? But that's not a superpower. You know what I mean? If somebody, like, walked up and shot him with a gun, it's not like he has a superpower,
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I think a lot of people misconstrue with this series is this isn't a super powered society. It's a superhuman society, which doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has a crazy superpower that can, like, blow up the planet. You know what I mean? Or level a city.
Yeah, let's say they're a superhuman society, which just means that they've evolved past normal humanity.
Yeah. Whether that's being somebody like Endeavor or being somebody like Deku's mom. You know what I mean? Those are big contrasts. Or like the guy that, the civilian guy with the three horns that, we see in after Ochako's speech, that kind of thing. That guy.
Yeah, I mean, once again, like, even just being Deku's mom in the real world right now would still give you a massive advantage over everyone.
Yeah.
You would still be superhuman, even if it's not a crazy superpower.
Yeah.
But having any form of telekinesis whatsoever.
Yeah. So, just saying. But either way, this did everything that it needed to do. Getting the Soba thing out there after Bakugo called it, hilarious. Gotta appreciate it. I think this wraps this up pretty well for what it is. Obviously, Endeavor's retiring. That's no surprise. He's obviously we're probably obviously not gonna see it, but like he pointed out, he's gonna shoulder as much blowback as he possibly can because of everything that was his fault throughout all of this. You know what I mean? He was a big part of this. Even if, with All For One doing what he did for hundreds of years, just Dabi being... If Dabi wasn't a part of the league, his replacement, whoever that might have been, probably wouldn't have been as powerful and devastating. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things where, and a lot of people look to him as now the former number one, having to shoulder the blame of failure and the state that Japan is in at this point.
Yeah, he was supposed to be All Might's replacement, and freaking everything went to shit the moment he took over, basically.
Yep.
As far as the public is concerned. And then you have all of the freaking skeletons that came out about him and his family and everything. Plus the fact that, even if you don't consider Dabi, if you just consider the whole thing of, like, all the shit that he did with the basically going full eugenics program with his kids and stuff like that.
Yep.
There's a lot of negative political blowback that he's going to be dealing with in general, but then you add to that the fact that one of the, like, top villains in this whole, like, end of the world war was his own kid.
Yep. So either way, a lot of people have just things that they have to shoulder, like what's her name, the expelled, like, third year, but she's not expelled, but mentions that even the students have to deal with, like, certain, like, goodwill missions and stuff like that, and that's going to be just something that they're going to have to deal with because they were the faces of the end of the war thanks to the live feeds. Everybody know who they are, you know what I mean? So
I didn't catch her first name, but her last name was Fua.
Yeah, Fua. Yeah. So it's just one of those things. Everybody has a lot going on, and obviously Natsuo made his choice, which, again, you don't have to forgive somebody, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You absolutely do not have to. You can't look at Natsuo and say, well, his dad did everything to atone and apologize. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to forgive him. You know what I mean? He can be... I think he did enough for what he promised to do, and now he just wants to move on with his life and not be associated with his dad at all. I mean, he's probably still going to be associated with his siblings and his mom, probably. But at the end of the day, from... The framing of all this is the fact that it looks like here is the fact that Rei is going to stay with Endeavor and his crew. She's going to stay with him.
Yeah.
So
she's basically going to become his caretaker since he can't take care of himself anymore because he's too disabled.
Yeah.
Which from everything we've seen, she does actually genuinely care for Endeavor. She always has. It's just... the abuse and the trauma and stuff like that drove them apart for a while there.
Yep.
But now that Endeavor's genuinely trying to change, she's trying to reconnect with him.
Yeah. And it's something that Natsuo did say in all that family stuff before was, Ryumi forgave him. Even the mother, Rei, forgave him, in the hospital stuff and stuff like that. But he just couldn't let it go. And that's perfectly reasonable. You know what I mean? I don't think anything that Natsuo did here was wrong. And maybe he might come around at some point, like you said, the first thing Endeavor ever said that he thought was cool. You know what I mean? One line isn't going to bring him around, obviously. But if he wants nothing to do with it, that is 100% his choice, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If any of you out there are in a similar situation, obviously not to this, but where you're in a situation of, your dad did something, your mom did something, and you don't want to forgive them, even if they're trying to be a better person, you should not feel bad about just distancing yourself and walking away, at least for a while. You can change your mind later. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal. But what Natsuo did right here takes courage, and there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's absolutely a completely healthy, reasonable response to that situation. You don't have to forgive somebody if you don't want to. You know what I mean? So I think that it's a really neat thing for the author to put in to just kind of highlight situations like that where, people could relate to it. Obviously not to the extent that the craziness that happened with the Todoroki family, but again, just having situations that you may not want to forgive a family member or a friend or whatever it was. You know what I mean? So there's absolutely nothing wrong with not accepting somebody's apology and not forgiving somebody. You do not have to. You know what I mean? There's nothing that says you have to. It's your decision, and there are certain actions that should remain unforgiven. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, and this would qualify for it. If you choose to forgive him, fine. If you don't, also fine. Let's not just gloss over the fact that, oh, he's sorry and he's atoning. So what? That doesn't erase what he did. You know what I mean? And you don't have to forgive him. So, and as a fan, I've seen a lot of people on multiple sides, on either side of the fence, like, well, how can you not forgive him? Well, how can you forgive him? That is subjective. You have to make that choice. You know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. But
it's just a thing of like, no amount of atonement or good intentions will ever get rid of what happened.
Yep.
Like, you basically either have to decide that you can live with what happened and you can accept the kind of person that the person is now, or that you can't and just move on.
Yep. It's not really a big deal, honestly. Make your choice, own it, and you're free to change your mind at any point if you feel differently about it. One day you wake up and one day Natsuo will wake up and say, well, maybe I should give Dad another chance. Completely reasonable. And if he never does, also reasonable. So again, I'm glad the author touched on this kind of thing, and it pushes away from the narrative of that, super happy ending and everybody agreeing on the same thing. Not everybody is going to agree on it. You know what I mean? Like we saw here, Rei and Fuyumi and Shoto all, are reasonable with Endeavor at this point, but Natsuo doesn't have to be. So that's it.
Yeah, they've all made their peace with Endeavor and are like willing to stay around, but Natsuo just wants to move on.
Yep. So either way, this did everything that it needed to. Nope, no issues really. So we got 2 more to go. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of that, because that's still a reasonable amount of runtime. So we'll just have to see what questions they feel like answering. One of the biggest ones, the shippers, you guys are going to have to wait, because that's going to be in the freaking one in May, apparently. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it seems like Endeavor is, while he's retiring as a hero, it seems like he's going to still basically be staying in hero politics of, like, he's still going to be running his organization and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then Hawks winning by default.
Yeah. Final mention here. Can you guys believe that Hawks is now the president of an organization that had nobody left but him? I can't believe they've done this.
Yeah.
All the public safety people were murdered brutally.
Yeah, the only remaining member of public safety was the freaking indoctrinated kid who didn't even want to be there.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe friggin' Nagant will join him or something, but she's probably still in that limbo of having been on All for One side for a while there. So she's probably another thing that'll be kind of touched on at some point here in the next couple episodes, I'm sure.
Yeah, I assume like Nagant, Gentle, a bunch of the other like more gray area villains will
overhaul, maybe.
Overhaul. we'll have to say like what happens with them exactly. They'll probably get the Aoyama treatment of like, well, you chose the right side in the end, so like you're gonna have to do some form of atonement, but we'll largely give you a pass.
Yep. Nope. Anyway, there you guys have it. That's the first bit of the epilogue there. And Spinner, there's another one. Probably. So.
Yeah, we still have to get Deku meeting Spinner because of the whole like Shigaraki's final words and all that.
Yep. So anyway, there you guys have it. We'll be back for the final 2 epilogues, and then we'll probably just do the one-off whenever that comes out in May, and then all the shippers can freak out because apparently that's what happens in that chapter. Because I haven't read it yet. This week I just couldn't find the time, but I'll make an attempt at some point. No promises though. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, people of YouTube, beyond however you're watching, as always, we appreciate you stopping by and hanging with us here in the dojo for more Anime Night in the Dojo. And this was My Hero Academia, the final season, episode 9. So have a good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever it is for you. Have a good one. See you next time.
Hey everyone, Victoria here. If you enjoyed the video, please consider pushing those like and subscribe buttons. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thanks again for your time, and we hope to see you again in the future.